Another silver squeeze? Are you kidding me? Well, actually, I'm not, and this one may count the most. I'll explain as we explore. I don't know how many versions of silver squeezes there are out there, but in reality, I believe it really pares down to just two silver squeezes. I'm going to get into that in a moment, but in between those squeezes, well, a good time to buy is whenever the prices dip, and dollar cost averaging is key, and Summit Metals has all the great products for stacking silver. So check them out and experience their great customer service for yourself by clicking on the link in the description below. So silver squeezes, people have been using that term a lot and applying different versions of it. You had Silver Squeeze 1.0, which happened back in 2021 and 2022, and that was a squeeze on the physical bullion, much like what you see here. And it didn't really have much effect on the price of silver, the spot price. It did have an effect on premiums, though, by a great margin. Silver Squeeze 2.0 has happened in 2024 and 2025, especially. And a lot of that goes back to a lot of the squeezes that we've been seeing because of tariffs. In other words, there's been a squeeze on the amount of good delivery bars in London especially that has put a squeeze on that market. And of course, there is, in a sense, an enveloping squeeze entirely on the entire silver market with the fact that there's more demand than there is supply for the fifth year in a row. Although, we really can't count that because it's like a tightening of the silver market and the silver supply overall. It's not really a tight squeeze that's intense and momentary. Well, now, this Silver Squeeze 2.0, which has really led to silver prices topping out at $54.50 an ounce, some of the same patterns that we saw back in June that led to where we're at right now are in effect again. And I'm going to be referencing a post by Profits Plus ID, who is very careful about making any kind of calls, is showing a very bullish skew developing, he says, in the ETF options, based on a very wide deviation of put-call spreads in the SLV ETF, which, by the way, is now wholly and completely in JP Morgan's hands. I believe there's two other entities that basically had abandoned it now, or moved out of it. But these ETF options from the respective moving averages, it appears we are at the same bullish skew reading that we were on June 4th of this year based off of his research. Put-call spreads are pointing to a very bullish structure, and silver is fighting a battle to stay above the channel from May of 2025. A successful backtest of holding above the upper channel becomes now a new support between the reset and options volatility premiums and recent correction and price sentiment. The short side could get caught again on the wrong side, and that is a big possibility, although it's not a guaranteed thing. But it signals extreme bullish skew that we're seeing in the ETF options, where you can see it deviate really from the 20 and 250-day moving averages, which is what we saw on June 4th, 2025, that preceded silver's price rally from $34.51. Now, you remember at that time, I was not following a whole lot of the technical side of what was moving and happening there, but nonetheless, it is an interesting dynamic based off of Bob Coleman's research that really is something that will raise eyebrows across the entire silver market for a reason I'm going to tell you about later in the video. And I'm also going to show you some silver that I recently bought, if I can find it here, at my local coin shop. It's not much to talk about, but it is something because I got it for right around spot price. And so what this is about, essentially, is this $34.51. Now, you remember at the time when silver got above $34 and $36, especially $36, I was saying that this was a very important number. And we did see it blast through that $36 mark, and really it hasn't come down since. And here we are, that $34.51 was another area that I believe I discussed, if my memory serves, as one of those crucial numbers that we need to stay above. $32 was another one. And really, in a sense, this is where the bull run started. And it has not slowed down until just last week, with those 2 trading days where it really went down dramatically. But nonetheless, it did stay well above $45 an ounce. So in other words, what we're seeing right now are signs that we could be moving into yet another silver squeeze. This could be the third one. And for much of the same reasons why we had the second one. And by the way, Silver Squeeze 2.0 was much more significant than Silver Squeeze 1.0. Big time. And Silver Squeeze 3.0 could be even bigger. And you know what this means? It means that the video I did several days ago, maybe last week now, about silver's price, that we very well could not see $50 an ounce until the end of the year or the beginning of next year, could be wrong. We could see it sooner based off of this. Although it may take a little while before we get there. But silver futures for December of 2025 hover near $31.78 an ounce, testing upper channel support from May 2025. Holding this level could trigger a short squeeze amplified by declining options volatility. And spot price now trading near $49 an ounce as of the recording of this video. And of course, by the time you see this video, who knows what's going to happen. In fact, right now in overnight trading, it just climbed back over $49 an ounce, barely. But that with the gold to silver ratio resting right now at 82.37, it is elevated versus the historic 40 to 60 average. It really tells you that silver is undervalued, and especially considering the tech-driven demand potential that's out there. Notwithstanding the gold to silver ratio, it should not be used as a measure as to where silver's prices could be, because gold's price has been amped up so much because of central bank buying and holding being the key word here. And that is absolutely paramount. So in other words, we're at a new normal unless some of these central banks decide to sell gold. And then and only then, well, I think it could damage silver, not by a whole lot, because this demand that I'm talking about is mostly recession-proof, or recession-resistant, rather. So it's a very interesting post here, and I think that does tell us that we very well could be in for another wild ride with silver that could move up. And again, I cannot emphasize that Mr. Coleman's analysis here is much like mine, and that it's not normally, it's not overly clickbaity or bullish, in terms of the price. Where he thinks it's going to. In fact, he didn't say what price it would be. No one really knows. But based off of research by another member of the community, this I think is something that is quite powerful, because I did talk about in a recent one of the first dips that we saw, and I talked about it through a second dip, that we had almost 2 years worth of global mining supply that were traded in paper. In the markets. Well, JM Unleashed, a great member of the community who knows a lot about this stuff, he says that silver short sellers have dumped the equivalent of now 3 years worth of global mining supply in the last 2 weeks, and were unable to drop the price by even 20%. That's a big deal, folks. That was a lot of short selling to try to get that price down. And he thinks they're playing a dangerous game of hot potato, and not just that, but also on steroids. Many big players were on the sidelines waiting for lower prices and are taking advantage of the recent price drops now. And it is fun to watch, as he says, and it is very interesting to see that people are getting in there. And by the way, I don't think we're going to have another Hunt Brothers situation, but I tell you what, if we get a couple of other billionaires or multimillionaires like David Bateman come into play, I think it could just amplify that squeeze even more and propel prices north of even $60 an ounce. We'll see what happens. Very interesting. But thanks to JM Unleashed for that insight and analysis. And again, a shout out to Bob Coleman for his reasoned analysis on the precious metal markets in general. And this really is an encouraging thing if you are bullish on silver. Now, does it mean it's going to happen? History often may not repeat itself, but oftentimes it does rhyme. So it may not be enough to move at the same percentage from $34.51 to $54.50, but I think it very well could set in place something big for silver in the weeks and maybe months ahead. I'm talking about north of $60 an ounce. I think it's a possibility. We'll see what happens there. Now, before I show you the silver that I got, I want to tell you about a video that I did recently about gold. A very bullish call that has been made by gold by several very prominent entities, not just a big bank. I'll post a link to that video in the description, in the end screen here. But I also want to show you the silver I got at my local coin shop for right around spot price, and it's fractional. I'm going to pull them out of this little baggie here. And it's not very often you get fractional silver, pure silver, by the way, at the near spot. I got a 10th ounce 2025 Britannia. Very, very milky one, by the way. Milky to the core, but it's all right. It's a 10th ounce silver anyway. And many people feel, hey, milk spots, in a sense, can be a security feature. So I'll take it, especially near spot price. My local coin shop was very kind to give that to me for a near spot. And also a 1/4 ounce chunky with some milk spot on it, too. Here, Chunky Monkey. It's a Chunky Monkey. Put that in the comment section down below. Chunky Monkey silver there, even though there's no monkey associated with it. But this is Y2K silver, the year 2000. 1/4 ounce, nice thick. I like them thick. I'm down with the thickness, you know me. So there it is. So there that is, and here this is. It's the only coin. This is a coin, 20 pence, in the stack there. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.